Good evening, everybody. We'll call this meeting of the Delta Township Board to order. Will board members and guests please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Bowen. Present. Trustee Brewer. Present. Trustee Cascarilla. Trustee Mojica. Here. Treasurer Fiedema.
Here.
Clerk Clark is present. Supervisor Fletcher.
Here.
You have a quorum.
A motion to excuse trustee Cascarilla would be in order.
So moved.
So it's been moved and supported. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. First up this evening, we have a presentation from CATA. We have Brad Funkhauser and other staff from CATA here to present to us a proposal to extend Route 3 down Saginaw farther to extend CATA service throughout the township. So Brad and your team, you can come on up to the podium here. We're glad to have you here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and members of the Delta Township Board. And thank you for the introduction. I am Brad Funkhauser, the CEO of CATA tonight. I am going to introduce to you CATA staff who will be doing the presentation. I will be sitting off to the side. As you know, in late October, I took over as the executive director of E-Tran. And so I will be playing that part tonight, if you don't mind. First up, we have Deputy CEO Andrew Brisky, who you've known from years past in doing presentations, and a new hire over the last year, which I'm very proud to introduce to you, Dustin Hagfors. I recruited Dustin out of Southeast Michigan. He was instrumental in working for SMART as their planning manager in helping develop micro transit and other applications. So with no further ado, Dustin.
Thank you, Brad. Good evening, board.
Good evening.
Well, thank you. So I'm here to discuss the proposal that we have to get some ideas on what your feeling is about it for a possible Route 3 extension. And the Route 3 extension is part of the region's plan on trying to be more collaborative through our transit, understanding that people's travel patterns do not end at the county borders when it comes to shopping, employment, and whatnot. So I know Brian's pulling up our presentation here right now. No worries.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're okay. Tension.
Yeah.
How long have you been with CATA?
So I've been with CATA now for 9 months.
Okay.
Started back in July. And actually I'm born and raised in the Lansing region. So I'm actually love being right across the street from Horrocks right now. I always stop there whenever I'm in town.
Awesome.
Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties.
Sure.
My world, welcome to it.
No worries. Do you want what I'll do is I'll pull up on my phone so I have it and I'll just kind of start talking. We don't have the cool maps until one slide or so in. So that's when it's really important. So 1 second here.
Brian, is this the slide show that you sent us?
Yeah.
So we have it.
That's when they
Yep,
email.
okay.
Sorry
About that. Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up. All right, well, I'm gonna do it from memory then. Here we go. So,
So we have it.
okay, fantastic. So you can fact check me as I'm talking.
Just let us know which slide. you will.
Sounds good, sounds good. So yeah,
It's not part of the packet, Brian. Mm-mm.
It was sent.
It was sent.
Email attachment.
yep. No worries. Okay, well, so the whole point of the Route 3 extension, it is again to pilot this extension into Delta Township to connect to the existing network. Oh, thank you, gentlemen. Oh, I love that. We're at the same time. Fantastic. So part of this plan is based on a regional grant that we received from the state of Michigan. It's called an SDNT grant. And so what that is called is actually a Service Development and New Technology Grant. The goal of it is to expand regional transit with grant funding and see how it works in a new environment and see how it intermixes with the business environment and the residents that live there. So our goal is to utilize that funding as a multi-year pilot to see how transit interacts with Delta Township. And what we see that it's an opportunity not only for Lansing area residents and Ingham County residents to access the plethora of business opportunities out here, but also for your businesses to have an opportunity to attract new employees that may not necessarily have a vehicle, but maybe a great employee for Walmart, Horrocks, whatnot. So moving on to slide 2, what we have is our proposed route, which is option 1. And that proposed route is in the past when this discussion's come up. That's kind of what has always been discussed, which is the idea of saying, hey, Route 3 ends in the Lansing Mall area right now, continue it down Saginaw Highway, connect to Delta Marketplace, and then come back out. Very quick, straightforward, moves right in and out, gets people to the businesses. And so while that's been discussed in the past, we have kind of looked at a lot of things and said, okay, how could this route maybe be a little more dynamic and also give you a better pilot and see how does not only your business community react to it, but maybe your residents as well. So moving to the second option on the next slide, we have kind of what our suggested extension could look like. And what trying again. Okay, that sounds better now. Okay, so with the proposed extension that we're suggesting for option 2, what we're doing is instead of continuing all the way down Saginaw Highway, the idea would be to make a left onto Canal and go southbound to St. Joseph, and then go down St. Joseph to the Delta Marketplace Boulevard and then come back up. What that allows to do, it allows a couple of things. One, you do have a plethora of housing options down Canal Street, which include apartment complexes, mobile home parks, all areas that there are potential transit dependent people in. So this gives your residents an opportunity to see if we put transit in place, does that benefit them? Is that useful for them? What it also does is because of the traffic and because of the way the intersections are set up right here at Canal and Saginaw, with the stop that's the closest to this intersection where we would have to put it, it's so far set back that we're actually away from, the Hilton Garden Inn right across the street here and the other hotels where they could potentially have some employees that could work there. So by turning on Canal allows us to get a closer bus stop to that area and makes it more user friendly for the rider. And what it also does is you guys have done an amazing job in the Delta Marketplace of adding in a sidewalk network, which then allows for ADA accessibility. That routing also allows us to really stay close to that sidewalk and ensure that if someone were to get off the bus there, it's a sidewalk that can get them to any of the stores or businesses that they may be frequenting. Yep, no worries, Brian. So I think we're on next slide and give me one more here. Perfect. Thank you, sir. So what you're looking at here is this is our paratransit network. So with a route extension, per the federal government, we are required to provide paratransit service. So what we call SpecTran. And so with this extension of the Route 3, that purple square on the left there, that is the extended SpecTran zone that would occur if we do the Route 3 extension. So that would go from Willow Highway down Nixon and then to Mount Hope. Per federal guidelines, we are required to do 3/4 of a mile. CAT always tries to go above and beyond, so we end to be about a mile or so from the fixed route. Next slide, please. Thank you, sir. And so now Spanish service, when it comes to this Route 3 extension, we are literally continuing what we're already doing in the region with regards to service. So our Spanish service is going to be identical to what the Route 3 is now. You have your service Monday through Friday, 5:40 a.m. to 10 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, you have some weekend hours as well. And then when it comes to the frequency, we average about 30 minutes right now on that route for the most part. And that's going to, again, duplicate based on this extension. We have it built in to accommodate for that. And again, with SpecTran service, if you have the Route 3 operating, the SpecTran service operates as well per federal guidelines. And that's actually pretty straightforward and through the presentation, but of course, we're definitely here to answer any questions that you all may have.
Thank you. No, that's great to see. 3-year pilot, right? What's the estimated cost then that will then have to be discussed at the end of the pilot?
Of course. Well, so we're estimating that this extension on the existing Route 3 will average about $350,000 a year. And we do have grant funding to cover that now. And there is hopes that we'll have grant funding in the future as well. But obviously the future, as we found out during COVID, is a surprise to us. So we'll find out what happens down the road.
Okay, so there's no. Oh, that will be discussed at the time there, and then your hope would be to continue funding it with grant funding.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thanks.
The initial grant though, what's the duration?
The duration, it's, I believe, a fixed amount, if I'm correct.
Oh, so it's not a year, it's an amount?
Yes, it's an amount. And we do have hopes that it will be renewed because there has been a very large push for regional collaboration in this region. So
It's a little over 750,000.
The total of the grant?
Am I correct?
Correct. Yeah, the initial grant was 737. We've gone back to MDOT and they are initially supportive of as early as this year, adding to that so we can have more service. So we're not up against a wall with spending it all on this or another service, if you will.
So if I understand it right, this is 300 and some thousand a year cost. So that could be eaten up in 2 years' time if you didn't get additional grant extensions.
So during the pilot, that is correct. We believe that there'll be additional funding sources coming from this grant, but we also have revenue coming in from our new advertising on buses, which would come out here. So we also have some existing grants and didn't want to get into too much of the funding scenario, but we've got 5310 grants, which are urban grants for elderly and disabled, which could be applied to this. So I believe we have enough money to do this, as well as other things we want to try in the pilot. We want to have more money come from MDOT because this service development new technology grant is for regional coordination of new services. That's what the state money's for. That's why we're saying, hey, we're the one doing this right now here in the capital area. So that will allow us to do other things like the new investment coming into Amazon and other things. So.
And the other thing it does is free up with the CATA covering that special needs buses, air route, it could free up E-Tran to do different routes.
Yeah, you're wearing two hats, I see. So
Yes.
I am, and I am at E-Tran every day and I'm at CATA every day. And I've learned in the 6 months that I've been down there a lot about the differences between the two and why it is so clunky to, whether here or somewhere else, Detroit or Flint or where else, to combine a rural agency and a urban agency. They weren't set up to do that. That's why it's so clunky. So,
And the restrictions are very different.
yes,
right.
correct.
How are you going to determine which option to go with?
Well, so I wanted to present both of the options to you all to get feedback on. So the option one was what has been shown in the past. So I didn't want to say, hey, we're ignoring that and moving on from it. But with a lot of additional planning and analysis, and again, wanting to make sure that this pilot not only is testing your business community's reaction, but also some of your residents' reaction as well. We feel that that option two is the better way of routing. But again, we're here to get feedback from you all. We're not here to tell you this is the way you have to go about it, but that's just how we saw it.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
What factors will you be studying during the pilot that would lead this to say, yes, this was successful, or no, this was unsuccessful?
Of course. So we will be analyzing ridership and seeing how, since we have an existing route here, we can see how does the route change with this expansion down Saginaw. Of course, we'll also have open communication with you all too. I mean, we'd love to hear if businesses are saying, hey, we're having a lot easier time finding employees, or if they see even sales go up, or maybe even the opposite, who knows? Like it's all about having that open collaboration to see how it impacts it. And then we can look on a stop by stop basis. So like when we put all these stops in, our plan is literally just to put a pole in the ground with the sign and tell people this is a bus stop. And then we want to organically see how do people use these stops? Are there particular stops that people are using a lot? Maybe that means that we need to put an amenity in place to make sure that's a more comfortable waiting period. But we're waiting for the passengers and the riders to teach us where are they going so that way we can react to them.
And will you be surveying riders on the buses?
We will, yeah, we do surveys periodically and we
Okay.
will definitely be analyzing this route to see how people are reacting to that extension.
Mhm. And do you plan to advertise to let people know that this is going to be theirs to boost that ridership?
Most definitely. So we did do public hearings where we brought this up as an idea and got public feedback on it already to make sure that, you know, public is like, hey, if we did this, how would you react to it? But we would for sure advertise the service because we want it to be as successful as you all would want it to be too. So we would make sure that individuals know that the Lansing Mall is not the terminus in Delta Township anymore. Now you can come all the way out to Walmart. You can come to Horrocks and enjoy the plethora of options they have. There's more opportunities in Delta Township now.
From the E-Trans side, Mr. Supervisor, we are just launching a study of transit needs that we promised a couple years ago that we would get to, and that's also being funded out of the grant. Under E-Trans board leadership and Vice Chair Mary Clark, we decided that we were going to do that out of Eaton County. So that agreement has just been signed. So about Memorial Day, residents and businesses will be surveyed for their transit needs. The reason we wanted to launch this was in the past, in our relationship with CATA, which is weird for me to say, but that's the role I'm playing tonight. And that's how it works right now is that this is a new venture and we're doing it differently. And so the Route 3 and the Route 3 extension has been at the top of the list forever. And so let's get that going, and it's going to spark all kinds of conversation, business opportunities, jobs, and so forth. But this study, which should last about 6 months, will also, part of the scope, will also look at the funding mechanism. It will also look at funding opportunities, grants being one of them. But there are multiple pots of money where this could be, I would say, self-sustaining in the future.
I'm super excited about this and have been for a long, long time. And I thank Mary for keeping us posted with how this project was moving along. I do like Route 3, the option 2. I think that's really great. And what's so great about it is you're getting into the residential areas. You're getting into where employees may be who can get to some of the workplaces along the route far much easier. And I would hope, I don't know, and I'm putting this out there, that the businesses would be encouraged to be a partner with this because it is such a challenge today finding employees. This would be a great incentive to businesses to offer bus discounts or bus passes or some sort of collaboration with you to support this project. So I'm all for it. My only question is, I just want to make sure that the door-to-door service that's currently offered through E-Tran, because I know a number of people who utilize that service on a regular basis, that's not going to change or be discontinued in any way. I see there's an expanded area. I just want to make sure that door-to-door service that you do so well, both E-Tran and I suppose it works well for Spectran as well, will not be hindered.
That's
by
correct,
this.
Madam Trustee. In fact, what we see is this actually giving us the opportunity to do better collaboration and study it more. So it will be unaffected. It is different service. I've even talked to drivers who said, isn't this CATA coming in and taking our business? The answer is no. We need more transit. We need more transit options. And
Yes,
so this is getting us into the business of collaborating. It will not be affected.
thank you.
I was just gonna say, in answer to Karen's question, our other pilot that we did was not at all a set route.
Right.
So it was very different. What we're doing with this
Thank you.
is much more user friendly.
I remember that.
You mentioned the Amazon and we know with the Amazon expansion, extension, the Meyer jobs, the new Ultium plant, that we're preparing for an influx of new residents, and that means transportation, but it also means housing. And so I just want to ask, on this route, there are a couple places over here on Marketplace where there might be new housing go in, middle tier housing, attainable housing. But most of the rest of it is already developed along that route. If we had some new housing go in that was specifically for one of our employers, would CATA be open to working with that employer, working with the township to make sure that that transportation reaches that middle tier housing and gets them to their jobs?
Of course, I mean, fixed routes, even though we call them fixed routes, they're not a fixed spot. I mean, it's the nice part about buses is when the environment changes, the bus routes can change with it. So that's definitely something that we can look into. And one of the things that we're also looking to pilot in the future that we're getting established is with like the Amazon distribution center, we want to also pilot a system called microtransit. And this is kind of the first step to connect to that, is so that way you have this extension will go into hopefully a future microtransit zone, which would get that individual to Amazon for work. So it's just kind of like putting that puzzle together. And this is the first piece to seeing the end.
Yeah, it's great to know that we can grow together.
Of course.
I think, if you don't mind, Mr. Supervisor, I think the neat part about this experiment in having myself, having leadership at both agencies running back and forth is putting a big goal together and letting the experts do what they do. And I'll tell you some examples very quickly. CATA was getting rid of vans, small vans, accessible vans that are used to dispose of it at auction. The E-Tran board and E-Tran citizens and businesses are saying, why don't we explore using smaller vans instead of the big ones that we see? Why aren't we going and just signing the title over and we work with the state? Why isn't this is what I'm talking about before, where it's not set up. So we have delivered 4 used vans that you'll see on the road to begin looking at those efficiencies. Job fair, for the first time, CATA and E-Tran combined on a job fair, and we are now hiring. We have 4 new students at E-Tran because we're hurting in Eaton County as much as we are in Ingham County. So why the duplication? And that's what we're working on. So I love the answer that Dustin gave you on if you have new housing coming in, would we be able to serve that? This is still provided by E-Tran, and we're going to be working with CATA to make this happen. But ultimately, it doesn't have to be CATA. It doesn't have to necessarily be E-Tran, but it can be contracted. It could be microtransit. It could be when we step away and say, what does the township residents and businesses want to be able to do both social service and economic development together? That's the model. We'll build it depending upon who can do the best job, and we'll partner. That's the vision.
Excellent.
Yeah, can you explain just a little bit microtransit case?
I would defer to the expert if you don't mind.
Thank you. Yeah, so microtransit, it's kind of, you can kind of think of it as the public transit version of Uber and Lyft. And so they are smaller vehicles. They would probably be shared rides, but they operate anywhere within a zone that you determine. So you can create a microtransit zone, and anywhere within that zone, someone can go in it. But then let's say if we have a zone in Delta Township and someone's like, oh, I need to go to East Lansing. That microtrans zone, they get into their vehicle, it takes them to the closest fixed route that will then continue on their journey outside of the zone. So it's dynamic routing of a vehicle. It's great for if you have a lower density situation like the Amazon distribution center and Ultium. The way they're built, because they're farther out, it's harder to do a fixed route for that. A microtransit would be a lot more dynamic and be able to get people right to their door, right to their jobs.
Thank you.
But also helps with that, the school called and I have to go pick up my kids,
Right.
so the microtransit to the fixed to get them. That
Of
sort
course.
thing.
To Dustin's credit, when Ultium came in last year, we were asked as part of LEAP to sit down and look at this as a regional project, and we brought the other 2 transits in. And Dustin designed with LEAP and Ultium a process where maybe a single mom wants to work an overnight shift and then all of a sudden her child gets sick. How does she get home? They want a guaranteed ride home. So in this presentation we built, which they took back to their corporate, was this customized transportation system that fit their business and their lifestyle. And so we're excited about it. And I really believe that it has a real chance of taking off this time.
And we're not bogged down with what this is gonna be in 3 years. It's like, what is needed today? How can we meet the needs today? What does it need to look like as we grow and change? And who knows in 3 years, what it will be called or what it will be. If there'll be one merger, there'll still be 3 separates that work together, Clinton, Eaton, and Cata, but certainly a greatly improved communication and partnership. At the minimum, that's what we're gonna get out of this.
Great.
Well, personally, I like the option 2. That makes sense to do. Getting it down to the apartments and everything, I think makes a lot of sense and everything. So that's great. Well, we're excited about it. So what,
Good.
I forget, did you say when you hope to have this up running?
We're hoping to have it running with our May bid, so we would debut it sometime next month. And the plan also with that too is it's a lot nicer to get used to a new route when the weather's nice. So we're hoping to have it running by May, and then maybe we'll everyone take a ride together on it. So
Great. Well, we definitely appreciate you guys being here tonight.
thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Yep, we look forward to it.
Thank you.
And thank you for your cool business cards.
Thank you for saying that.
We have the agenda before us. There is a purple sheet that we'll add. Are there any other additions? If not, a motion to approve as amended would be in order. Sunday.
I hope that we accept the agenda as presented,
As amended.
As amended.
as amended, excuse me.
And there's support.
Second.
There is support. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Next up is the public hearing for the St. Gerard Noise waiver for their festival. So we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anybody here in the audience this evening who came to speak on the St. Gerard Noise waiver request? Going once, going twice. We'll close the public hearing and we have the motion before us to approve it, which is the pleasure of the board. Karen.
I move that the Delta Township Board approve the request of St. George Church for a waiver of the noise ordinance between the hours of 12 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. on May 6, 2023 for the purpose of holding their annual church festival.
Is there support? There is support.
Support, and I just want to go on record as clarifying myself, Supervisor Fletcher and trustee Cascarella, who's not here, are all members of St. Gerard and do not feel that this is a conflict of interest.
No.
Roger.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Public comment now for any item. Or anybody in the audience this evening to speak on for public comment? Right here with something to say to the board? Okay, I guess not. We'll continue down.
One person.
Okay, come on up.
My name is Trisha Steinberger. I live over here on Broadbent. And I was just informed yesterday that there was a public hearing for a project that's going on over there. And I just wanted to bring it to the board that I'm very disappointed that we were not notified.
I'm assuming you're talking about there hasn't been a public hearing, but I know that there's been discussions. It's before the planning commission right now. So I've followed the agendas of the planning commission for that proposal. So far, we're just doing the rezoning. Is that what we're doing right now? So far, I forget exactly what.
Special land use
permit.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, you're not taking comment on it today. I just wanted to bring it up that there are a lot of people that live on that road that were not notified.
So how the procedure works, yes, you're correct. There was a public hearing for the planning commission past Monday. And the state law requires us to post it in the newspaper and provide notice to everyone within 300 feet of the property. If you're beyond 300 feet, no, you would not have gotten notice.
Understand?
So you're probably outside that radius.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else in the audience? Okay, we'll continue now then. Moving on to the consent agenda. Dennis, you had a change to make?
Yeah, so I just have a question that I'd like to ask staff on item number six, and that is the broadband development. And what I would like to ask, and I watched the planning commission's discussion on this just before I came.
So just for clarification for me, are we pulling it from consent agenda?
Do we need to?
I don't know. I don't know what you're doing. That's what I'm trying to
He's
find
asking
out.
a question. If he gets his
Okay.
question answered, we can approve it all is. Otherwise, if you
Right.
prefer, we could pull
We're
it out.
trying to save time.
Gotcha. Okay.
So my question on this is twofold. Is there, and the question applies to both stormwater and sanitary sewer. Is there adequate capacity for this development as it's being proposed with 300 some units without township investment? And if not, what would that be?
So you're asking that for stormwater or sanitary sewer or both?
Both.
Okay, stormwater, that is a function of the Eaton County Drain Commissioner's office. We would not necessarily be involved in the cost of extending that
Right.
system for that. So the on-site detention would be required. The water would be held on site for a period of time, then metered into the Hayes drain, I believe it is, at the northwest corner of the site. So that would be, there's a number of wetlands and detention areas that'll be connected throughout the site that'll filter water through and then eventually be slowly outlet into the county drain. And so the drain office would determine the extent of detention necessary to make sure that it doesn't adversely impact adjacent properties.
So to that point, because I think it's the Myers-Briggs drain that goes along North St. Joe that they put in 20 some years ago. Do you know offhand if it's gonna overflow into that at all?
I don't know if it's connected to that drain or not.
Okay, because that was financed by a portion of it by me and a number of other residents as well. And I'm just curious, but we'll wait for the drain commission on that.
Right.
The other thing is with the sanitary sewer.
Sanitary sewer, we're looking at options now on how this property is to be served. We had a discussion earlier today with the township engineer and the township manager and township finance director to discuss possible options. So the engineer has a preferred routing, I believe, that he's looking at based on information provided by our consultant. And yes, there will have to be improvements to the township system to accommodate this development. So you don't have this, you haven't seen yet the staff report or the minutes, you haven't watched the meeting. But there's information regarding that in that report. So the stipulation for the special land use permit, not the zoning, because we can't attach stipulations to rezoning requests. The special land use permit has a stipulation that work not be commenced until we have a design and a project ready to go and under contract. So that would make sure that they can't do anything to the site until we have somebody ready to make the proper improvements to accommodate it.
So that analysis and plan of our financial responsibility or involvement will have to be brought before the board.
Correct.
Okay. And will that be part of the next consideration for the rezoning or not?
Probably not. It requires quite a bit of work yet to be done and determine how costs are allocated. Well, what the actual cost would be, first of all, and how they could possibly be allocated.
So is it fair to say that we'll be proving not the site plan specifically, but the rezoning in anticipation of a development where we don't know what the costs will be for the township at that time?
Correct.
I just wanted to be clear on that. Thank you, Gary.
Yep.
Would you like to make a motion on the consent agenda?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Is there support?
Support.
There is support. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Brewer,
Yes.
trustee Mohica,
Yes.
trustee Bowen,
Yes.
trustee Cascarella, treasurer Fedewa.
Yes.
Clerk Clark is yes, supervisor Fletcher,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now we'll go to the purple sheet item that was added, the water pipe replacement for the Millet Water Tower. Rick, you want to walk us through that? I know that's something new that just came up.
Yes, thank you Supervisor Fletcher and board members. As you remember, in January, the 17th meeting, we approved some preventive maintenance, interior painting, some minor repairs to our Millet Tower, water tower. It is currently dewatered. We did some inspections and there's two down pipes. There's a 20-inch diameter pipe that goes directly and feeds General Motors directly. And then the 16-inch line is for the township system, distribution system. In video, CCTV camera video on that pipe, we discovered that it's in really bad shape. So we actually went through and ultrasounded it as well. And we found that it is almost pitted all the way through. We do have one spot that it did burst through. And it's something you can't address until the tank is empty. So once we have the tank empty, we looked at it and we found that it's scheduled 10 pipe and the deterioration is better than halfway through. And in some cases, it's almost through. The thickness of the wall of the piping. So we contract, our contractor on site, EL Contracting, we asked to give estimates on costs for replacement of those two pipes. And that was the cost estimate came in right at 3:00 today. That's why the purple sheet. They can replace both pipes with thicker wall, better grade pipe for the 89,000. I forget the exact dollar value, but it's just under $90,000.
Questions from Beth?
Is this normal wear and tear on the pipes? We expected them to have this kind of breakdown eventually?
No.
Okay.
Is this uncommon? It's happened before. Keith Nelson, Nelson Engineering. He's been working with tanks for 40 years, and he can count two prior. So it's not unheard of, but yes, it is very uncommon. So it's basically the material they used was a very thin wall pipe, and they could get through.
Yes.
Well, Rick, notwithstanding that we always wanted to see inside an elevated water tower, it's been a perfect chance to do that with photos and all
Yeah.
that. Are these metal pipes or?
Yes, sir. Steel. Yep.
Okay, they're stainless steel?
No, just typical steel pipe.
Okay, not galvanized or anything like that?
No,
No
just
need for
steel, typical steel, not a ductile iron, it's actual steel.
Yeah.
So,
And what's the height? I didn't see the measurement on that.
well, the tower's 140 feet, so it's about 120 feet in length.
And you said they have to be melted in or welded in sections, so do you know how long is the pipes that they have to weld together? 10, 20 feet?
Correct. They're either going to have to get us through a door or they'll have to cut a hole in the side. So it depends. If they cut a hole in the side, they could use longer sticks of pipe.
Yeah.
If they try to take it through a door or up through the hatch, you're looking at less than 8-foot sections and probably 6-foot sections. And so they'll cut it out in pieces using rigging. And then they'll also put it back in pieces and weld each joint. It's
Thank you, Rick.
not the best way to do this, but it's the only way we can do it at time.
I'm trying to remember how old the tower went up for the GM original plant. Correct.
2001. Yes, it was part of
2001.
General Motors.
Supervisor Fletcher.
Yeah.
Will you just share with us, especially for our residents who might be watching, if this isn't done, what would be the peril, the problem?
These pipes are running inside the base of the tower up to the bowl of water. And so there's 1 million gallons of water sitting on top of these pipes. And if it fails, even just a 2 or 3 inch hole in the pipe, you would completely fail the tower. All that 1 million gallons of water would come down inside, do damage inside, take out the electrical that's in there.
Hmm.
It would be a catastrophic failure.
Thank you. And my last question is, the funding of this, we have dollars available to pay for this, obviously. It would be out of the water fund. Is that where this would be coming from?
Correct. Yes, it will be out of the water fund.
Thank you.
Are you or anyone on your staff looking into the dysfunctional pipes for any kind of recourse for the township? Is there anything to be pursued there about either negligence or materials that were inadequate?
No, I don't think, it was a joint venture, it was General Motors and Delta Township. These pipes are completely vertical, so structurally, they will handle their, the maximum pressure you probably see on these pipes is 60 square pounds per square inch.
Okay.
So structurally, they were good. It's just when you start factoring corrosion, your pipe is much thinner, so corrosion gets more detrimental as you get a thinner wall. So would we design a water tower today with scheduled 10 pipe? No. But it was
Just a calculation error then?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Any other additional questions? Would you like to make a motion? Yes.
I move that the Delta Township Board accepts the proposals from the ENL contractor to remove and replace the 16 and 20-inch down pipes at Miller Water Tower at a cost of $89,989. Further move that the Township Board authorize the Township Manager to sign and authorize the forms.
Second,
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Rick.
thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Move to items of new business. Item number 10, the special land use permit to allow a tractor trailer facility at Waverly Road and Old Lansing Road. What's the pleasure of the board on that item? Yes.
I have several questions and comments.
Sure.
I don't know if you want them before or after a motion.
Just go ahead.
I am concerned about the flow of traffic with this project and the roads that it comes on. I had a conversation with Gary, and I think it would be beneficial for the whole board to understand where it's located, where ingress is, where egress is, and potential challenges to that.
Is it possible to pull up the aerial photo, Margaret? You can do it.
I will do my best.
We do all have maps in our packet.
Right.
Well, that's happening in specific. The piece that went in the board packet references this project as being on the northeast corner, and that would be Ingham County. It's the northwest corner. So that's a typo.
Yeah,
That-
we all know where it's at.
Mhm.
Well, just clarity.
Yeah.
Do you want me just to go ahead, Gary, or you want to wait for the map?
Well, if you've got an amended motion, it helps to explain what's proposed in the.
Okay, so I have concerns. The current, what came out of Planning Commission allows the trucks to come off, semis, to come off of Waverly into the property. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's where the old Paxton granite place was, and it's north of the Shell station on Waverly, just north of Old Lansing Road. And the egress is on Old Lansing Road, and currently they could go east or west. And if you look at the actual physical amount of land that there is, and you have semis coming out of a small road in terms of construction. I mean, it's not road designed for lots of semi-traffic, I would guess. And I travel that road several times a week. It has certainly a lot of peak times. And I do not think that it is a safe process to allow, or is it functional to have semis come out of there onto Old Lansing Road and make a left turn? There's probably room for, I don't know exactly where the road's going to come out, 1 to 2 semis. And then what happens to the car traffic? And it's fairly close to the stoplight. So I talked to Gary about amending the motion. And this was discussed in Planning Commission, but didn't have legs, to only allow egress as a westbound turn. Then they would go to Mount Hope up. Then they could go up to Lansing Road and make a right if they want to go east. Versus turning east in a very short length of road and make a left turn at the light on Waverly.
Why did the planning board differ?
Well, they did not discuss a one-way west movement only. What they discussed is actually limiting the hours that excuse me, Old Lansing Road driveway could be utilized. And they were talking about restricting movement out of that driveway to hours on either side of from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. So between 3 and 6, they weren't going to allow any traffic coming out of that driveway. And that was proposed by one of the commissioners, and then it failed for lack of a second. Motion did. So they went with the original recommendation, but the concerns raised by Mary still remain. So as an alternative, this might be a way to handle that concern.
And then you're not trying to monitor and control left turns and hours they're not allowed. And a left turn, I don't care when you make the left turn is a challenge on that piece of road.
Can you identify all the roads on this picture here? So we've got Lansing Road, and then Waverly is the one that's straight up.
Release north and south. You see the Shell station at the cursor, Brian, if you point to that.
Yeah.
So that's Waverly. That would be trucks coming in off Waverly, traversing through the flag-shaped site down to Old Lansing Road, which is diagonal.
Diagonal one, and then that's Mount Hope.
And Mount Hope is,
Okay.
over to Lansing Road. They can't have any access off of Lansing Road. That's controlled by MDOT, and it's restricted access.
Okay.
But in that drawing, you can see that there's not a lot of distance at the edge of that property to the light across from the cemetery there on Old Lansing Road in Waverly.
And what did you say, make a left? What did you say?
You would not be able to make a
Oh,
left turn. You
not make
could
it, okay.
only your egress onto Old Lansing Road could only be a westbound / right turn.
Okay.
And then they can still get up to Lansing Road by going up.
Oh, yeah.
Just go around the block.
Yeah.
Gary, was there any discussion with the planning commission over the number of trucks that are gonna be ingressing, egressing daily?
Yeah, the traffic impact study detailed those, and then staff's memo talks about it further down about the volumes expected during the peak hours. So,
Yeah.
and the
50 per
afternoon
day.
peak. Yeah.
I mean, I see only 3 bays for repair. So,
Yeah, so again, the peak hour, I think in the afternoon was 15, and then morning was 20.
Yeah.
but to Mary's point, and I agree with her, is I travel that every other day and it is congested and they're short distances. And, it's bad enough with just regular car traffic. I can't imagine semis turning, holding up traffic. Then there's the issue of not just the stoplights, but the trains that block traffic for a while. So I don't know if that was factored in at all.
Well, the study basically looked at the operation of the intersections of Waverly and Old Lansing Road and determined they would operate to a satisfactory level of service. But in terms of this particular egress, we're still looking at, I mean, is it safer to make the right turn out of there? Yes. Is it safer to make all right turns to get back on Lansing Road or even to get back going south on Waverly Road? That's probably a lot safer movement. So.
So, when we say semis, these are not the cabs with the trailers, are they? They're just the
Looking fair,
cabs?
I guess they can provide that information.
Because if they're going in for maintenance, they're not hauling.
Yeah, not
when they're in
typically,
for
but there
maintenance.
might be occasion. Go ahead and introduce yourself and then we can.
My name is Virgil Newman. I'm the general manager of Pat Ride Trucking. I've been with the company a little over 30 years now. I've been also a truck driver for that amount of time. I started to get my CDL back in 1988.
Okay, so
What's your question, ma'am?
when we're talking about vehicles that are coming in for maintenance, is it the tractor plus the trailer, or is it just the cab part?
It would be both,
Both.
or it would be either or. If it's a trailer worked on, the truck has to obviously bring the trailer.
Mhm.
If the truck itself's being worked on, it would come by itself.
Okay, so it is trailer maintenance
Correct.
as well.
Typically, when the repair takes place, is it something that's done in the same day, or will the trailers need to be housed there? And if so, how many can you house overnight or for weeks for repair?
It could be a house. What we're trying to do is set up a more of a quicker, shorter service period, like brake chambers, something smaller. Because we got all these other companies around us that do the bigger jobs. We want the lower jobs, so we're not containing the vehicles so long. A lot of these drivers, faster they get on the road, the more the money they can make.
Right.
So instead of waiting 2 weeks or a week and a half at each place, we're trying to eliminate down where it's an hour job or a 3-hour job. We're trying to take away the little jobs so they keep moving. Because as a past truck driver in the position I'm in now, I understand cost and time is a factor.
Excellent.
Do you generally have concerns if we limited the turns out of there?
I'll be honest with you, right turn's always best than a left turn for drivers. Especially that area, because I know what you're talking about. And as a past truck driver, it is harder to make that corner. And that way we could go right to right to right or to left, depends on where Mount Hope and Lance Road connect. Is then gives the options to go to either highway, which is 96, 496, or up Waverly over across.
Sounds good. But then we'll have any concern. Why don't you make your amended motion, Mary?
Okay. I move that the Delta Township Planning Commission recommend approval. Oh, wait a minute, it's not. I'm on the wrong one, sorry. I gotta bring it up. I'm off the Planning Commission notes. Sorry about that. While I'm waiting, I will tell you that's a difficult piece of property to move anything with. So I certainly don't object to the fact that you have a business there. I think that's a great use of a unsightly piece of property, but it's just a safety issue that I may or may not get it up.
I've got it here, Mary. You just have to add that number 4 that I wrote for you.
Yeah. Thank you. At the recommendation of the Planning Commission, I move that the Delta Township Board approve the special land use permit for a vehicle repair facility in case number 11-22-08 for the following reasons. One, the use meets all applicable general section 7.03 and specific use standards section 8.61 for a truck repair facility. Two, a site plan shall be submitted for review by the planning commission in accordance with the provision of chapter 6 of the Delta Township zoning ordinance, illustrating compliance with all of the township's applicable development regulations with the following stipulations: failure of the applicant to comply with any of the provisions required by the zoning ordinance or any stipulations required by the Delta Township Board shall constitute grounds for termination of this permit by the Delta Township Board. Two, the proposed development will be subject to the site plan review by the Planning Commission. Three, the necessary amendments to the township's truck route ordinance shall be adopted prior to the commencement of any construction activities on the subject parcel. And four, the Old Lansing Road driveway shall be limited to egress only and allow only westbound traffic out of the driveway onto Old Lansing Road.
Is there support?
Support.
There is support. Any additional discussion? Beth?
Will there be any underground storage tanks for gasoline on this property?
No, it won't be.
Okay, so you won't be offering
Because we
gas?
use Pacific Pride as our main gas source.
Okay. Will you be offering oil changes?
We will be, yes.
Okay, and what are your procedures for disposing of oil?
We will probably have tanks, short limited tanks.
But
Mostly,
above ground?
yeah, above ground.
Okay.
It could be just like container tanks that would be disposed of through like Safety Clean and just proper disposal companies that use it properly.
Okay, that's good. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Managers report. Brian, what do you have for us today?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and board members. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I have to say,
We know you worked outside classification.
that's right. I just feel bad. I'm gonna have to make sure Rick can do it on my computer, which he was here at 1 PM testing out the system. So not his fault, but just a couple things, just letting you know, some of our public education pieces should hit your mailbox if you want to pass those down for the postcard for our bond millage. As I mentioned in update to the board, we something that I kind of celebrate, we did the township demolished the house right up here north on Canal, which has been a code enforcement problem for many, many years, a vacant house and a public safety issue. So thankful for our building department and code enforcement team for their persistence in getting that house down. And last but not least, I want to introduce our new economic development director. Peter Menser is here, and today was his first day, so or sat in a couple meetings. You can come up, Peter, just introduce yourself to the board. And we're very happy to have Peter and his experience.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Peter Menser. I've been in this area since about 2006. Spent almost 15 years at Meridian Township, and I spent almost 2 years at the city of East Lansing, and was happy to come across the opportunity to be here, and very excited for the opportunity, and appreciate all the everyone's efforts and Brian walking me around today and getting involved here.
Well, great. Well, welcome to the township. We're glad to have you and glad to have that position filled, as I know it's been vacant for a little while as we've gone through a transition. So we're excited to see you get started.
Yep, looking forward to working with all of you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's all I have, Mr. Supervisor, but happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Brian? I will throw out there, Brian, you and the staff can discuss and bring back over the past probably a couple of weeks. I've received residents reaching out over the issue of deer in the township and questioning whether or not it's time for us to do something, start calling the herd in the township, because They felt it was getting pretty high. And then also somebody who had concerns with a vacation rental that has opened up in their neighborhood. So those are two topics we haven't discussed here at the board. So Brian, I'll let you and the staff to kind of think about those and then see if we need to start having some conversations about either one of those.
Sounds good.
Vacation rental is the only one I've ever heard of, so I haven't heard that that's a problem other places, but.
I think we're quite the destination for a vacation.
Yeah.
Clorox, honey.
And the house that's being rented is a pretty nice house, so I'm not sure exactly what, people are staying there, what they're coming for or anything, but it was interesting. So with that, we'll move to the committee of the whole then, and we have our utility department presentation tonight, Rick, so you can come back up and we'll see what you guys have been up to. Not that anything's going on with the water resource recovery facility build and everything.
Rick, would you raise your mic up to, yeah, thank you, a tiny bit, thanks.
Thank you, Supervisor Fletcher and board members. While he's doing that, I noticed I looked past the last 10 years and I cannot find where I ever talked or my predecessors really talked about utility department org chart or employees. So I thought I'd start out with that.
Great. Good.
I don't know.
A lot of our employees have made a career of Delta Township.
Giving you a hard time
Um,
today.
Can you just bring up the agenda packet like we do and go through that?
I can try that. I apologize. There is something weird going on. There we go.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, go to the next page, please.
Sorry, Rick.
There we go. All right. Now, there's no particular order, but we have 6 actual crews. Distribution, collections, operations, maintenance, utility, support, administrative staff. There's usually a total of 31 employees. Currently, we're staffed at 30. We have 1 vacancy. And again, a lot of us have made this a career. Looking back at, some of the years of experience, probably in the next 5 to 7 years, we're going to have about 1/3 of our employees eligible for retirement. We've always had succession. I'm a product of succession. I started out as an operator in 1984 and worked up through the director. So we always have, but in the last, looking ahead, and looking at our future, we really stepped that up. But I'll kind of showcase some of that as we work through this. But succession is very important for utilities. And we're actually really deep into that. We're trying to get a lot of the brain trust, from these guys that are looking at 2, 3, 4, 5 years, being able to retire, getting that brain information to all our new guys staffing. So if we go to, this is the distribution. Our distribution system consists of 3 ground storage tanks, about 5.25 million gallons of water. We have 4 booster stations. We have 1 booster station for each ground storage tank. Then we also have a booster for General Motors. Our static pressure or our pressure in our system, usually about 54 PSI. We supply General Motors with 80 PSI. So we have a specific booster station just for General Motors. We have the 2 elevated water towers. About 236 miles of water main and over 2,300 fire extinguishers, fire hydrants. I'm not going to go through all the day-to-day details. Basically, these descriptions are kind of, as a new hire, what would I do? Responsibility to have. So this is kind of what we have. All I can say is a small print that's on every job description. Whatever is required is part of your job description. Looking at our employees, this is a 5-man crew. John Sapchinsky, look at the years of service and then the licensing. The first set of licensing, a lot of our employees are dual licensed for both water and wastewater. Usually the wastewater starts out at entry level would be a Class D license, and it goes up to a Class A license. Your Class B and Class A license would be your major wastewater licenses. Your S goes from an S4 entry up to an S1. Our system is an S1 system. So as you can see, right there, we have 3 S1 operators. Jake Stanley, he's rated as S1 this year. And then we also have 2 or 3 staff within the department that have S1s. So we're pretty deep in the bench there. Dave Swink retired last year after 46 years of experience. About 5-6 years ago, we had John work with Dave, just mentoring development. John was developing Brad and Aaron. So when Dave left, we moved these guys. It was seamless, just as we work through. And again, you can see we have a pretty deep bench. John's got 23 years, but he started when he's 18, so he's got a few left to go. So we're in really good shape, the distribution. Collections, 22 lift stations. Collection system, everything flows by gravity, and a lift station would allow it to flow to keep flowing by gravity. It all goes downhill. So we have 22 lift stations, 1 EQ basin, 176 miles plus of sewer main. In the collection system, they're responsible for cleaning sewers, CCTV or closed circuit TV, inspecting sewers, and also maintaining the lift stations. We have a 6-man crew. In the past years, we always had just 2 guys. All they did was clean. 2 guys, all they did was stations, and 2 guys, the projects and the cleaning. Knowing that Gabe's getting close, about 5-6 years ago, we blended it. Every 2 weeks, the guys are working with different team members and different system, either cleaning or CTV, just to get all that brain trust to all our employees. Collection crew really doesn't or is not able to write a wastewater license or a system water license. But what we do have is PACP, MACP, and LACP. It stands for Pipeline Assessment Certification, Manholes Assessment Certification, and lateral lead assessment. And that's where we assess the condition and both by maintenance and critical asset assessment. And you can see we've gone through, we have 3 here that are fully certified. Next year we'll work on, additional. We also have a couple other staff within the utility department staff. So we're fairly deep in this bench, preparing for succession. The operations maintenance, our roof plant water resource recovery facility, short roof. It is a Class B major facility. Again, wastewater starts at D as entry level and works up through to B to A. It's a fully physical, biological, and chemical process, so it's full treatment. Our biological, we're removing organics, nutrients, chemical removal with nutrients. Our digestion system's a fully biological process. It's an 8-man crew. Over the last years, what we've done is the lab and operators were on one crew and the maintenance guys were on the other crew. The last 4 or 5 years, we blended it together. Basically Pat McGarry and Mike Klein, you know, they get 33, 35, 34 years of experience. They're pretty close to being able to retire out. They were fully licensed, but they kind of let their licensing go where they are in the work life. But what we did is we blended the maintenance and the operations together. So whenever they go rebuild a pump or a motor or pull something or work with something, one of the other operators go with them and just get that brain trust. Again, get it into the ranks. Dave Dehane and Mike Stafford are both Class A licensed operators. They're both dual licensed. I've been personally mentoring Mike Stafford. He finished up his environmental biology BS about 4 or 5 years ago. We got him as Class A. He's writing his S2 this year. Probably the next year and a half, he'll have his S1 fully licensed. I also included him in a lot of the rough updates, just mentoring them to get them for succession. Go ahead, next page. Our utility crew. This is a crew that serves a couple functions. The first is we have a lot of EGLE requirements, our industrial pretreatment, our cross connection, our biosolids. Both Ken and Pete are heavily involved in that. Ken came from the private laboratory. He has a BS in chemistry, Pete, environmental biology. Whenever we work with our industrial clients, you know, they're going to have a product that they want to discharge to us. You know, what's in that? First, we have to do, determine, what constituents are in it. Just that alone, you get to look at the analytical, what type of bottling do we have? Is it a VOA, a headspace, no headspace, amber bottle, 500 ml? What's the hold times? What are the preservation? What methodology do we have to use? All those detection limits, all that information, we got to work with the industrial client to see what's in there to then determine how it's going to affect our biological system. Right now, I don't have a real good succession with Ken. We'll have to work on that in the next 4 or 5 years. Pete, I do have good succession with him. His position requires dual licensing. We've been training guys for inspections, sampling. He also runs, a lot of the biosolids day to day. We have been working with our staff, working with that. He's also dual licensed. I have 3 or 4 guys that are dual licensed, so we're good there. Mike Courts, Justin, they're getting up there. They also let their licenses go, so they were fully licensed. This crew also, usually we don't have really a systematic employee shortage. Usually it's an acute, collections need nice cleaning, an extra body or 2, or the lab got a large project that needs a body or 2, water main break. So this is where they're going to pull these guys from, Mike, Justin, and Brandon. You just don't hire in on this crew, you transfer into this crew. So Mike Courts, he started out in operations, moved to distribution, did 4 or 5 years of distribution, went to collections, 10, 15 years. Justin also did that. He went from operations maintenance to this crew. Brandon went from operations to collections to this crew. So they're very well cross-trained. They're very familiar with all the other crews and departments. So again, if night cleaning, collections needs a body, we can grab these guys very easy, no real downtime. Next group, our support staff, Matt Cooch, our control technician, and our supervisor, control and data acquisition, our controls, our SCADA system is kind of a unique position. Basically, all the pumps, all the valves, chemical treatment, it is all controlled, just a pump failure may be a control failure. And to figure, and understand that. A lot of departments would need to hire a third party. So first they have to come in and figure out how we're set up, how the controls work, do all that troubleshooting before they can even understand what the problem is. And 9 times out of 10, it is a control issue. So having Matt developing and building this system, clear down to the screen to how we look at SCADA and customize to our needs. This is what keeps you out of the papers, the bad news stuff, his capability. So for succession for Matt, we started about 4 or 5 years ago, an assistant. Right now that is our vacant position. We have filled it 3 times. We need to fill it again. We're working, trying to work with, we worked with LCC. We're trying to work with Grand Rapids Community College, try to find a candidate that can work with us. And right now, being able to work with Matt to mentor, that person, especially with our roof upgrades, right now we're very all into the SCADA and development. So we're hoping we can bring somebody on board and get them for Matt's succession. Our mechanic, if you could go to the next slide, please. We've always been mechanically inclined at the utility department. We've always been able to, do the repair work, do it in-house. But in the last 5-10 years, a car isn't, it's all computers now. They've just gotten so sophisticated. And we've had a couple of even guys who may have had a license, 1 or 2, but we've never had a master mechanic. So as the vehicles got more technical, just understanding and be able to make those repairs. And then the liability, we put an employee or somebody in a vehicle, something happens, we're fully covered because Will is completely ASC certified as a master mechanic, as the heavy equipment. So it takes a lot of liability protection. Will's also worked with the fire department and got EV for the ambulance certified, and also the fire apparatuses. Now, some of the fire apparatuses are too large. We won't really be working on those, but having the understanding to be able to talk to the talk is a huge benefit. And right now we have, like 97 fleet vehicles for the township. We not only do utility vehicles, we do the township fleet vehicles. There's 97 of those. We also do the sheriff substation, only the Delta Township substation vehicles, and there's 24 of those. So, we're well over 100 vehicles, and then when you get the large equipment as well. So there's actually a pretty good sized fleet that we're dealing with. Just having these vehicles that, you hop in and doesn't have a check engine light, just little minor repairs, and a lot of our equipment, such as our jet trucks or dump trucks, ambulances, they can't sit in the shop for 2-3 weeks. When they go down, we need to get those repaired in a timely manner, and we're able to do that. So it's a very good benefit for the township. Yeah, right. Administrative staff, Holly and Kelly. Basically, Holly is at the roof plant. She does a lot of the payroll, projects, a lot of the data. Kelly's at distribution ops. She's in frontline customer service. But they both are completely cross-trained, both fill in for each other and completely. Mike is the deputy director. He handles the day-to-day, working with the supervisors and then myself. Right. Get into some numbers. Water service calls. You see we're starting to get some good. These are every time we roll a truck. This isn't just a phone call and answer a phone call. This is that rolling a truck and we're dealing with a complaint, or it could be water blowing out of the ground, could be water smells funny, it could be anything in between. These are usually done by appointment, but you can see our numbers have really shot up in the last year. The sewer calls, those are, there's no appointments there. When somebody has a sewer call, they want us there now. Usually during the day, it's always less than 30 minutes. After hours, we got to bring a guy in. It's still under 2 hours for a response, and those are immediate. You see, most of these calls are homeowner, end up being within homeowners. I do recommend, you know, if a homeowner has a problem, call us first. We'll check our main line. If it's our main line, we'll definitely take care of it. If it's not, at least the homeowner knows that when they call a plumber, it's not on our side. So we do prefer them to call us first. The homeowner stuff, it could be anywhere from a plug line to odors, you know, an odor complaint. The other is usually stormwater related, you know, missing manhole on a storm cover, or sinkholes, or just stormwater. We did have 3, and they're all paper products this year. So water sales. This is a billion gallons, so it's a little harder to tell. Our water usage is down from previous years. You get on the other side of 2018, and it looks much better. Water sales are down. You know, our big industrial client, our largest industrial client, was really out of production 4 months last year. Our office buildings, you know, those 2 or 3 large office buildings in the state, still working from remote and trying to get those back in. You know, our average went from 3.58 to almost 3.6 down to 3.38. I imagine with Altium coming on board, that's going to push us back where we need to be. But water sales were down from the previous year. Along with that, you know, if you're not selling the water, you're not getting the water back. So our waste is also down relative to that. Back in 2018, you know, we were prior to that, we were, you know, 4.8 on a daily average. Now we're 4.36. Again, when the water sales pick up, obviously this will need to also. And also on the wastewater side, you also have the stormwater, a wet year. You know, if you have a wet year, your flows are going to be up. If you have a dry year, you're going to be down. It was a dry year last year, but that's actually a good thing. You know, the stormwater doesn't pay any for treatment, so it's best not to have that. So, misdig, your numbers are still up there. Again, we misdig our water and sewer. Water's blue and sewer's green. We do this in-house as opposed to a third party. Back in, you know, prior to 2019, these numbers are a little misleading. Prior to 2019, you would have, you know, the 3,300 mistakes. They'd be specific address. You know, somebody wants to plant a tree or build a deck or put a structure on site. So you're misdigging and staking one address. Starting the last part of 2019 and into 2020, that was when fiber started going through the township. And we're marked, you know, one misdig ticket is Willow Highway from Waverly to Clark Road or Kreitz. You know, it's streets or subdivisions is one ticket. And, you know, after 2-3 years of that, we go, well, we may get a break. Well, this summer, Consumers Gas started a very aggressive gas service replacement program. So we're back to marking, you know, full streets, you know, down Waverly, down Richard, Rinker, the entire streets we're marking. So, you know, these numbers are skewed, but they're still very large numbers. Right. All right, some equipment we purchased, our Bobcat excavator. This replaces a backhoe. This is for our typical larger excavations. They're really not used for putting in a service line in a tight lot. This is for deeper excavations. This is a huge piece of equipment for safety. Normally we'd use a backhoe. And the backhoe only turns 90 degrees. So you have your hole in front of you. You have your dump truck, which is a 10-yard dump truck sitting right next to the excavation hole. All that weight, sheer weight next to a hole. Then on top of that, it's dumping carbon monoxide into the hole. You also have a 2-wide excavation construction site and diverting traffic around. Whenever you start blocking lanes, cars get crazy. It's very difficult. But this piece of equipment, it has 180 effective capability. So the truck is behind you. You have the hole in front of you. You have the truck behind you, so you don't have it next to a hole, not pumping noxious fumes in a hole, not providing shear cave in. And it turns 180 discharge. You also narrows your sight, your service lanes, so we can keep traffic moving a little easier. So that's a huge safety thing. Also, this here is kind of a unique purchase. Kind of started out Parks going to the manager's office and Brian thinking, hey, how can we efficientize, our department, our purchasing? So Brian got with finance and then they got with me. So we purchased this. We took a good quality backhoe to Parks and then got rid of it and basically a piece of equipment that was failing all the time. Matter of fact, it failed twice in our parking lot just to get rid of the thing. So it's a real good, efficient use of reallocating and working together as departments. Started on the manager's office. So it was a real good work together. It was a win-win-win, especially for Parks and I. The TGB unit was our part of our radio read system. This here is our combination truck. Okay, you go back. The TGB unit, we have 2 of these on site. You have that little white box on the side of your house that takes your water meter reading every 6 hours and broadcasts it through frequency or radio wave. And it hooks up into one of 2 of these. These are initially put in 2009, 2010. So we no longer had to walk to house to house to house to get readings. It was done automatically. And now with the reader reading every 6 hours, we actually chart it and work with customers. So if they have a high water bill, we can kind of look at what's going on. But it's not so much Big Brother. So we can't really tell, when they turn a pump on or turn a faucet on. It's nothing like that. It's a snapshot every 6 hours. So we can see by the day, if you have a high usage or not. So it's pretty limited, but it is a very useful tool for when people do have high water bills. Our combination truck, it replaced a 20-some-year-old truck. We're getting a tremendous use out of this truck. It's a very expensive vehicle, but just the safety aspect of these type of vehicles, the front of it, you clean the inside of the sewer, pull the debris down, the Vector part of it cleans it out. So we don't have to send manpower down inside a manhole. And believe it or not, we don't like to go down them either. Basically, the confined space, to harness the air, the atmosphere, it's just best to do it from up top. We also use this at the roof plant, cleaning tanks out. So instead of bucket with a rope, cleaning a 100-pound bucket up overhead, taking guys' backs out and arms, having them drop, we actually just suck it out. So it just a huge safety factor there. We also started using it at the water division. Whenever we have to do excavating, this is a hydro excavating Vector. So let's say you have a gas line or a fiber cable underground. You can't really see where it is. You have a mistake, but you really don't know where it is. We can very safely hydro excavate it. In other words, we vacuum the dirt over top of that structure or that service. We cause no damage, and we actually physically get our eyes and locate where it is. We also take it out on every single water main break. As you get down towards the main, that water, the soil gets all soupy and mud. We just suck the mud out. It keeps the integrity of the trench. And we're not wallowing in mud. It also keeps the safety of the fracture of the pipe. So we're using this more and more as we go. It's unbelievable, the safety and the the efficiency of how it works. So everybody in the entire utility department gives a huge thank you for this. The pumps, it's a submersible lift station pump. That's a hydrostall pump, about 15 horsepower. Every couple of years, usually we have 22 lift stations. After about 20 years of a pump sitting in the soup, we need to replace it. Just as asset management. So every year we try to replace one or two of these. That's about a $20,000 pump. So again, we try to get one or two of those every year.
Rick, how much was the Vector truck? Was it $350? Trying to remember.
It was a bargain of 470, something like that.
Okay.
It's one of the few things we really hit right on the timing and got that ordered before the world fell apart.
Our digester cleaning, again, we have 4 digesters. This is 4 of 4. The first one we struggled with for about 2 years. We finally ended up having to bring a contractor in to finalize the last 300 cubic yards of debris out. The remaining 3 we're actually able to do in-house. This is about a 10-month process. By the time you isolate it, start pumping it out, clean it, get all the debris out, inspect it, refill it, and get it back in service. About 10 months, but we did this again with our in-house staff in about 10 months.
Rick, you've made up for not having an internal picture of the water tower by having your 50-foot secondary digester photo here. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I was trying to give free tours down in those, and I didn't get too many takers, but I did get a couple. So Manager Reed decided to take a peek inside. Our willow ground storage tank. This is needed the exterior painted. And as part of our strategic planning, we put the placemaking IM Delta on it. Basically, if you travel east or west, more so west, but if you travel on I-96, you'll see our tank. So roof improvement. Again, this is just the overview of phase 1. Part of the package you guys seen quite a bit. Next slide. Part of the phase 1 is 4 buildings. 2 of them are complete. This is a control building, laboratory. They're expected for us to move into this May 1st. So they still got, the interior is pretty much wrapped up, but they need quite a bit of exterior, curbing, parking lot, kind of get the immediate area around it set up. This is our aeration tanks. There's 5 cells. Just in the flooring in this, there's over 3,000 yards of concrete. It's 30 inches deep. It was 9 pours. So a lot of concrete. The first cell, which would be on the south or the right as you look at it, has 2 more pours and it'll be complete and ready for testing, for water testing. Then they'll keep working north on the other cells. This still has, I'm guessing, it'll be for the end of the year before they get done with all those. Our electrical building, our electrical switch gear and standby generator and all the electrical and fiber connections will all go through this building. The buildings, as you see, is pretty close, but all the switch gear is still about another year out, supply chain. The couple overview pictures. the site. Here's just, again, these projects that we're working with engineering, manager's office, finance, planning, and building. A lot of the projects that we worked on the last year, I didn't want to list each one and go over each one, but clearly answer any questions. But you know, a lot of the stuff's, we've been in front of you quite a bit, so. I'm glad to answer any questions with it.
Yeah, Rick, on that one, have we had any issues with supply chain or contractors on this massive project so far?
Not issues of not being able to get it at all, but yes, there is some long lead times, mainly the electrical switch gear. A lot of the stuff we knew going up front. We've been working with them. They've been buying it and storing it. So we've been trying to pre-purchase everything that we can. But there are some long lead times. We're waiting for a lot of the electrical switch gear, radios for the high-speed radios, electronics. We've experienced some issues. It's still within the scope of the project, but it's complicating things.
Okay. That's good.
Other questions for Rick?
He's got more slides.
Okay, yeah.
More slides.
There's this future, the water tower project, which is ongoing right now. The big project. Again, we're painting the interior. That's happening now. They should have it. The contract was supposed to be like May 13th, have it back to us. However, those down pipes aren't going to extend it. Minimum 30 days could be, hopefully we get it early July. So we'll see.
And we can still meet GM's needs with that tank out of operation.
Yes, the Altium, when, they get full service, but that's, we hope definitely be on that service by then. But yes, we're using below ground storage as our fire storage. So this is Carrier Creek. If you guys remember, this is the section of pipe between Gettysburg and St. Joe Highway. That out of the river actually is sagged enough to where there's a joint separation and we just don't know how much. It's actually under contract and it will be starting July 5th. Going in this, I think this one took my last brown hair. So very good to get this behind us. So. And there we go. Yeah. Again, thanks you guys for your support for all our projects. I know it's been in front of you a lot, but it's a lot of important projects, and we thank you for your support. Any questions?
I want to say thank you, Rick. This was really helpful for people to understand how complex your department is and how many arms there are going all the time. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, and thank you for being a model of, like you said, succession, keeping your department going and, building in those contingencies and the experience that you need. The only thing that Fonda and I say, and this is not to criticize, but we need more women on the staff.
It's hard to recruit them.
If we could only get them applied.
Exactly.
We tried, we did have a candidate that we offered the position to, 2 or 3 years ago.
2 years.
Yeah, she would have been a very good candidate. But we offered the position and she, for reasons she declined.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was just going to say thank you as well. I love the succession planning that you're doing and that there's opportunities to go from one crew to the other. And that you place an emphasis on getting those licenses, being as educated as possible in their respective positions. So thank you. This is great.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, great. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Any final comments from anybody, Dennis?
Yes, I'd like to make some comments. I was not at the last board meeting. There was some discussion regarding the appointments that were made at the last meeting. And if I had been there, I would have made a couple comments. One was I'm looking at this sheet here of all the appointees. It is still difficult, if not impossible, to determine how many terms that some individuals have been reappointed to, because it stops at 4. And in the case of some of them, that 4 is much higher than 4. So I guess, Madam Clerk, is it possible to actually put the number of terms that they have?
That's the problem, because many of them, there is no historical data. We don't know what time when they came on. So
Well, in the
I can
case,
only do with what I have for
well, in the
record.
case of Mr. McConnell, who said he was appointed, that was going to be his last appointment that he would seek. It was 20 years. So we didn't know that. And that's now it's going on to 20+ years. So we could ask them when there's not that many of them, but I'm not that concerned with the plumbing and the electrical, but some of the other planning commission and the economic development, for example, and Parks and Rec. So yeah, it would be helpful to know that, other than us having to just guess on that. The other thing was the CIA board. I know you guys discussed a little bit about some absenteeism. And I understand that one member has resigned because of his absenteeism. And yet there's another member who's missed every meeting except one for the past year. And, if I recall correctly, that the bylaws said, after 2 meetings that there would be a review, a discussion with the executive committee of the CIA. And I don't know if that's happened or not, but if it had, it has had no effect. And so I would suggest that there be some follow through with absenteeism with the other member on the CIA board. I believe that there's a number of people that would be more than willing to serve on the CIA board. I think the CIA board has some ample opportunities for engaging with the public that they're discussing, and then to have some business people and a resident who's not a business person would add to that dynamic discussion and inertia for the CIA, which we all want to see happen here. So I'm just making those comments because I didn't have a chance before, and I appreciate the indulgence of the board.
Other comments? Any other panel comments tonight? I don't know if anybody wants to say anything. Seeing nobody coming forward and seeing no business before us, we are adjourned.